Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here, and I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid, a channel I'm creating not only just to bring awareness to the complexities and the day-to-day realities of trauma, but I also want to delve into the understandings around the mechanisms behind it, so that we can create paths of healing and we can create ways to improve the quality of our lives. Now, as I said in the last video, I want to do a few more videos on attachment. And this is the one that is the central part around these videos that I want you guys to understand. Because attachment is such a critical part of every facet of who we are and how we belong and part of how we develop as people. And because attachment and how we connect involves our entire physiology, it is such a multi-layered thing. I want to try a different way of explaining it with the hope that will help all of you out there actually understand how this kind of works. So, remember the old phone operators when they have that board in front and they're plugging these leads in. And each lead creates a pathway of connection. A way for each person, all different facets of people around that city or that state, country, to connect. So if you take that analogy and we look at in utero, when we're developing, everything our mother experiences crosses the placenta, that shapes a large part of that board of what plugs are there that are needing to connect. That begins that first base. And then you have, the first few days, hours, and months. And then you have the first couple of years, and that shapes ever widening structures around all the different plugs that go in to create that whole safe, secure connection. And as we go through these processes, if they don't connect, whether it's through trauma or through medical intervention, through some reason, they remain not plugged in. They don't go away. They have to be, at a later time, we have to find a way to connect them. Because each one that doesn't connect is a negative response. So think of it this way. When we're adults and we've gone through, preverbal early childhood or a trauma when we were young, our attachment style is messed up. When we meet someone new, we go through these layers of assessment till we hit these particular block points. And then our body questions. We get that pang of this ain't right. There's a reason for us to question. We back off and we question, and it follows down the predictable path. Well, that block is one of those, or a series of those, that did those connections that was not made. And when we look at that interaction, that connection that we're trying to create, or they're trying to create with us, that obstacle has the same level of strength as it did when we were an infant or a young child. Has that same necessity of intensity back then. Which is a weird thing when you're looking at, this is my new boss that I need to create a connection to so I can have a job. And your body's going, well, I need to connect to my mom, or I need to connect to my dad. That's powerful a connection. And that's why attachment trauma plays out the way it does. Because each one of these connections, and there are loads of connections, and it's not, as I said, it's not a cognitive thing. It's our body participates in all forms of interaction. We need to feel this titration of positivity going backwards and forwards to engage. We need to know that what we're saying or our responses are respected, seen, and understood to want to be able to respond more. Our body participates. And when we go through particularly infant trauma, our body doesn't participate. Our body is stuck at these points that were harmed or separated or severed so long ago that our body doesn't participate. Just our mind does. And when our mind just follows instruction for attachment, it runs out of ways to connect, and we don't have the investment that others expect or need from us. Or when relationships become more in depth, we don't have the capacity to participate, and we feel more and more isolated. So when you look at it in these plugs, these leads that get connected, you can start to see why and where the predictability for attachment issues comes from. And as I said in the previous video, if you look at it from an indigenous perspective on those protocols, that is ways and pathways we can heal those connections so that our body and our nervous system and our endocrine system and all that will participate in the development and the healing of connection. But first, we need to recognize which switch is connected and are those connections positive, and which switches are still waiting to be connected. To put this in a rather personal analogy for me, but it is something that created a huge issue, and I find, as hard as it is for me to say, it's an easy way to real world explain this. So throughout my life, when I've had an attraction to a woman that I've wanted to pursue, or a woman's had an attraction to me and wanted to pursue, after the first few initial conversations, the part of me that wanted to connect, to take this further into, exploring an actual relationship potential, was as strong, as needed, and as powerful, as personal as an infant, newborn infant connecting to their biological mother. That most powerful, intense moment was what all my being was needing as I was trying to connect to this person. And anytime a woman felt that intensity, it went south. There's no way they could have met that. I wasn't understanding that that was what I was projecting. But that's what I mean by attachment trauma. We don't know what that is. And then when that's not met or understood, all that followed, the isolation and everything I went through from being taken and how I was treated as an infant, becomes what is felt when they haven't met that, even though there's no way they could. That's the reality of attachment trauma. And I've watched it not just only with other adoptees. I see it play out in all different facets and formats in the work and the years that I've done being around this stuff. You can repress this and you hold this back, and then you need to be vigilant all the time that your need's not being met because it's not their place to fulfill it. They didn't create it, they can't fill it, but then you're still separate. That's attachment trauma. That's what we need to work on healing. And is one, it was a holy crap moment when I realized. And a very, very challenging moment. But the benefit of it is I can create layers of experiences to work on healing that. I've seen it alter when adoptees have had successful, have had initial reunions. Most reunions fall apart, and for more adoption stuff, go to the adoption side of this channel. But I've seen how they connect change once they've had the face-to-face connection with their mom and dad, or a close biological member, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa kind of deal. And sorry, I'm getting over the flu, so on top of the normal thing, I get a little coffee as well. But understand that those obstacles, and that's the whole point of this video, is those obstacles that were created so long ago are what you will face when we try to connect. And what we do is we pack them away, and we use the parts to try to get around that. But for any meaningful connection, once things go past that generalized day-to-day interaction, this stuff's going to rear its head again. And that's attachment trauma. By creating a base and working on connecting to the natural world, we can start to teach our body to create the gray areas so that we can start to address this. And in the next video, I'll go into a little bit more detail of that. But I really want you to understand that what was disrupted, stopped, blocked, or harmed in your initial attachments as a developing child in your mother's womb and in your very, very early childhood, those are the obstacles to you connecting. And we need to go back and understand them so we know how to approach healing our connections. Because those are what comes up. And those are what we need to address, because these people now didn't create it, they cannot fix it. As always, I love you guys' feedback, comments, and questions, and I thank you for your patience with my little croakiness. But be safe, be mindful, be kind, and I'll see you next time.